Alright, so we're going to make some buzzers now. And basically what you need for these is some of these little linear switches, about 4 inches of PVC pipe, and you'll see I've already actually glued the top onto these that has kind of the square hole. In these little linear switches, they've got kind of clips on the top and the bottom of them, and they actually line up with, there's these little recesses in there, so you can kind of slide those in. If you press it in, they'll kind of click into place. I won't do it right now because we're going to do that in a little bit. But those switches will press into the top, and then there's these kind of two half pieces right here where these RJ11, these kind of phone ports, will clip in to these cylindrical pieces. And again, I'm not going to press it all kind of in place, but they sort of clip in like that, and they'll slide into the back of this PVC pipe. And so essentially all we need to do is solder together this limit switch and this, this linear switch and this RJ11 with some wire. So I've kind of pre-prepared that here. I've gotten kind of some 2 lengths of wire, which in terms of length, you kind of want to cut these things. They're just sort of slightly longer than whatever the PVC pipe is that you're using. And you want to strip a section of them and really kind of strip basically as short of a section as you can, maybe like a centimeter or 2, and kind of twist the ends. I got braided wire because it's a little bit more flexible. It'll kind of squeeze into place a little bit easier, and it'll be a little easier to solder in a second. Technically, you can kind of do this with whatever wire you want, but the braided stuff is definitely the easiest to work with. So if we kind of come in, first thing we'll want to do is tin up this braided wire. So the way I'll do that is get my solder and my soldering iron, and I'm just going to kind of get a bead of solder going on this thing. Essentially just kind of heat it up and sort of heat up the wire. It takes a second for the wire to actually heat up. And the solder will essentially just kind of wick into the wire right there. So I'll flip it around and do the other side. Hopefully this is clear in the video here. So I got a little bit of a bead going on the soldering iron, and kind of just press it onto the wire a little bit. Bring a little bit more solder in. Again, hopefully it's clear that it's just sort of wicking into the wire. And so now this is a braided wire that's got a bunch of solder, I guess, melted into it. So we'll go ahead and do the other wire here. I think this is like 20 gauge braided wire or something like that. Again, the dimensions on this are not especially important. Just kind of want to get a little bit of solder going there. Just enough so that it all gets settled in. So now both of these wires are all tinned up, so we're ready to go. So we'll start by, I did this off screen, but I already epoxied this top section on, so it's all ready to go. So we'll sort of set that off to the side. We'll take our limit switch, and now we're going to build up a little bit of solder onto both these little pins here. Again, hopefully this shows up on the screen. I'm just going to go and heat up both of these leads. It doesn't matter which one's which, but I'm going to go and just melt a little bead of solder onto each of these. And it doesn't need to be a lot. Again, just kind of, we're just mostly just wetting the surface. And once we kind of have that going, we'll come take our wire that we kind of previously tinned. We're going to go and bring the soldering iron as just a source of heat to heat up the two of them, and then the solder that was on the switch before will meld with the solder that's in the wire. And actually, it just stuck right there. I kind of want it a little bit straighter. And then we're just kind of bringing the heat source in to warm everything up, and we let the whole thing cool down, and there you go, you got your nice kind of solder connection. Just like that. We'll do the same thing with the black wire here, where we'll just bring the two kind of close to each other and heat up one, Connect the other. Bring it away and let it cool. There you go. Now both of those are connected. So now once that's in place, maybe test the wires to make sure they're kind of mechanically sound. We can now bring this and thread the wires through. And take a second to actually kind of get those to thread through. And once they're in place, we can bring the switch in and you'll actually hear it click into place. Or you're supposed to hear it click into place. Maybe that didn't show up on the audio super well. But now your switch is all ready to go, mounted in the top. You'll see the wires are sticking out of the bottom. It's now, once again, these circular pieces are going to slide into the bottom, the kind of clamshell around the two of them. And so sort of look like this in the end state. Having a little bit of a hard time putting these together right now, but yeah, just like that. So they'll kind of clam together and slide together just like that, and this RJ11 port, like I said before, is just going to sit right there. But first, before we kind of epoxy those into place, we're going to need to connect this RJ11 port in. And to do that, this one's a little bit more important to kind of keep the wires separate from each other. So here's an example of another port that I've done already where I sort of bent the leads sort of off to the side. Maybe you can see this on the screen, but there's the port kind of goes around and clips in just like that. So I'll sort of flip it over. You'll see these leads kind of stick pretty far out from the bottom, and there's a little pocket in this 3D printed piece here that has a little bit of depth to it. But you are going to need to bend these leads off to the side to make sure that everything fits properly. And so that's sort of what I've done here. So I've bent these leads flat, but I've also kind of bent them off to the sides so that they sort of splay out a little bit, so that there's less of a likelihood of when I solder these two things together that they short together. So let's go ahead and do that bend with this piece here. So for this, I'll just kind of grab some pliers and grab one of the leads that's kind of on the left. I'm going to bend it pretty far off to the left, just like this. And put a kink in it so it kind of comes back around and I can actually solder to it. I'll do the same thing here where I'll take this lead, kind of bend it off to the side, and then kind of come and put a gink in it so it actually kind of comes back towards the center. So with those two things, I can now solder to these. Bring this into place. And once again, I kind of already have tinned both of these leads, and so hopefully I should just be able to kind of bring the soldering iron in and heat both of these up, and they should just stick together. Just like that for that one. Just a little bit of heat to melt the solder slightly. And then once again, bring this in and just heat it up ever so slightly. Bring it in, and now I've kind of got those both. And so you'll notice now this RJ11 kind of sticks out a little bit, and so if you just kind of put a twist in it, you can kind of bring those up and then bring both of this back. So now if I go ahead and clip this thing into place, like that, and then this top clamshell comes into place here. Just like that, and there you go. The whole piece clips together just like that, and it should be ready to go. Now I'll do this off screen, but you can put a little bit of epoxy kind of in each of these cracks and glue it all together, and then you should be good to go. And with that, you've got your button completed.